seeing a lot more of recently. Really powerful and especially good against that Gardevoir. Threatening those Iron Heads is really great. That may be enough to force Conan into Kangaskhan for this game. On the other hand, Gardevoir's, I'd say probably forces him into Kangaskhan. The Kangaskhan does well against a lot of these Pokemon. Doesn't do well against the Aegislash, obviously, but better than that Gardevoir is going to do. So I'd expect in this best 2 out of 3 you'll only see Kangaskhan from Conan, and of course...
Right. Again, for those of you, you guys can see the teams on the bottom. For the full bracket, feel free to follow the challenge bracket. What? Battlefy bracket. Do you know what the link is for that?
I tweeted it. If you check at AlkaBKman, Nugget Bridge also retweeted that, so check Nugget Bridge's Twitter. You can find the link.
It's in the title of the Twitch stream.
It's also in the Twitch stream, so y'all can see it better than we can.
All right, so now we see the leads from both sides. Conan going to be leading with Cresselia and Kangaskhan, a very common lead that we've seen so many times before. Picklesword's going to be running Tyranitar and Excadrill, a little throwback to old school Sandstorm.
Yeah, but another lead that's been really springing up. There's a Japanese team that's successful with these leads, and so we've been seeing a lot of them recently. That team used Focus Sash Excadrill with Sandrush and a Choice Scarf Tyranitar. We've seen a lot of that. Wouldn't be surprised if that's exactly what this is. Despite that Sash, though, this Excadrill does need to watch out for a Kangaskhan Low Kick. No Intimidate's kind of almost an uncommon thing at this point in the metagame. So this Kangaskhan is at full strength.
Yeah, not often that we see that. People usually flock to bring their Intimidators. And we see Picklesword going to go ahead and bring Mega Tyranitar. That's a Pokemon that I am interested in. It's heavily bulky, but nobody seems to pick up on it.
I looked at that team preview, kind of curious as what the Mega was. Like I said, the Choice Scarf has been common on Tyranitar recently, but Gyarados isn't that common of a Mega either. It's interesting he's switched this up, going to have the slower Tyranitar, but a lot more bulky.
Excadrill going to go for the Iron Head, going to target down the Kangaskhan right away, doing about 50% of its taking away 50% of his health, and Excadrill reveals the Life Orb as Cresselia is going to go ahead and set up the Trick Room. So, depending on how this Kangaskhan was bred and trained, and how the Tyranitar was trained, it could possibly underspeed the Tyranitar, I think. I think it's possible.
All I know is that the Excadrill is the fastest thing on the field. After that, it's kind of all a mystery. Cresselia is probably the slowest, also.
One of the best ways to counter, fast rain or fast weather-based teams is Trick Room.
I really like that this is not that standard Sash Scarf. People have gotten kind of used to seeing that, even though it's not been around that long, and doing something different with it allows Matthew to kind of play somewhat to the unexpected. And Mega evolving as Trick Room goes up puts him in, I think, a pretty decent position if he can avoid taking a low kick with his Mega Tyranitar.
Even then, I think Kangaskhan might be in crunch range.
Right.
Right, so
that's what I mean. If Tyranitar can crunch Kangaskhan and knock it out under speeding in this Trick Room, unless Kangaskhan is slower for some reason, and then Tyranitar's in trouble.
Right. That's kind of a good move right there. Cresselia stayed in to set up the Trick Room. I like that move, but now it's going to switch out to get more offense.
Right. It can't touch either of these Pokemon, and they threaten it back. Heatran comes in with that Air Balloon. Shurika's been really common. Conan's showing Air Balloon. We saw that earlier, too. Good way to avoid ground attacks without taking 80% of your health like Shurika does.
And we see the switches. Heatran and Munga's going to come in for Conan's side as we... Oh, very good switches right there. As Heatran comes in for the Iron Head, and Amoonguss comes in for the low kick. So Tyranitar does carry the low kick. Tyranitar actually takes some damage back from that Rocky Helmet. So great defensive switching right there from Conan. That's the kind of stuff I like to see.
Lots of things revealed this term. Matthew learns about the Air Balloon and the Rocky Helmet. Conan learns about the low kick, knowing that he can't just expect that his Kangaskhan is not in crunch KO range, because now he has to worry about low kick. Lots revealed for both players that can play an important role, not in just this game, but the rest of the match. And now I think the Amoonguss is in a great spot, of course. Neither of these Pokemon have a Lum. They've already revealed both of their items. And with the Air Balloon gone, Heatran's in a little bit of a tough spot. It should be able to take any low kick that Tyranitar uses, and then threaten a Heat Wave that'll underspeed, so outspeed and Trick Room this Excadrill and KO it. So it's something like a Spore on Tyranitar and a Heat Wave threatens a KO and a Sleep and prevents Matthew from moving at all, which is what you want to do in Trick Room.
Yeah, definitely. One of the things that Matthew does have is that Gyarados, which kind of beats Heatran, but Matt's going to be content with just sending out Cresselia right now to replace the retreating Tyranitar. And Excadrill is also going to switch out, going to go straight into that Gyarados, going to get Intimidate, but the Intimidate doesn't really matter here. But that's a good switch right there because Heatran cannot really touch Gyarados.
Right, this is a good switch. You get the you're going to get your Cresselia put to sleep. Oh, safety goggles Cresselia.
Good
so
call right
makes
there.
An even better switch.
Great call right there from Matt to switch in that spot.
And then a Heat Wave miss on Cresselia costs him a little bit of chip damage.
Right, it missed the Cresselia.
Yeah.
So Gyarados takes a little bit of damage, but great switch right there from Matt's side. That was a great call on Matt's part. The safety goggles, of course, preventing the Spore. Yeah, I mean, this is a good position for Matt.
So now Spore can go on to Gyarados, but it prevents that.
And Amoonguss does go for the Spore into the Protect. Obvious right there that the Spore was going to land into the Gyarados. Heatran's going to go for the Heat Wave onto the Cresselia. As Cresselia goes for the Safeguard. That's a move that we don't see too often on Cresselia.
Safety Goggles plus Safeguard really lets Cresselia counter Amoonguss. Switch into a Spore, not be Spored itself, and then Safeguard and keep the rest of the team from being Spored. There was nothing at all Conan could do to stop that Safeguard from going up, and that's why it's so powerful. Now that Amoonguss is really weakened, they can still Rage Powder things, can Rage Powder a Waterfall away maybe from this Heatran, but doesn't have the power to really be a force in Trick Room with its slow Spores.
Absolutely. Of course, Cresselia now going to be able to threaten that Amoonguss with the same type of attack boost and psychic attacks. I definitely do not mind the position that Matthew has put himself in at all.
No, I think Matthew's handled this Trick Room really well. Completely stymied all of the momentum Conan had after setting it up. Got out of the threatened Spore plus Heat Wave. Ended up with nothing put to sleep despite Trick Room being up. Really well played by Matthew.
And we see Gyarados go for the Thunder Wave. Trick Room's about to expire. And also gives that chance for Amoonguss to not be able to move, so good call right there to go for the Thunder Wave on Amoonguss. Cresselia going to go for the Psychic. I believe Trick Room's already expired.
Yeah, and it may not have even been targeting the Amoonguss. That was a Rage Powder.
Oh, okay. Now the Twisted Dimensions have returned to normal. Thing to note, Cresselia is going to be moving faster than Gyarados.
Yes, that's right. So that's a slow Gyarados.
Right. Slow, bulky support Gyarados.
Right. So Amoonguss now is in Psychic KO range. Kangaskhan is in, again, with no Intimidates, but it's already taken a significant chunk of damage. I'm not sure it can take a Waterfall. If it gets Thunder Waved and starts taking things like Psychic and Waterfall, it won't last much longer. I think Conan has to be careful with it, too, because that Heatran's not ever going to be able to KO Gyarados, and so he's probably going to need it to, and neither is Cresselia, so he's going to probably need Kangaskhan to land a big hit on Gyarados at some point to keep it from just running through his team.
Yeah, absolutely. Amoonguss right now threatened to be knocked out. Matt's going to go ahead and withdraw Gyarados, going to send out that Tyranitar to reset the weather. I definitely don't mind that. Even if you don't have Excadrill operating, you're still going to get that chip damage, residual chip damage.
A good switch into return if that's what's about to happen.
Right, and we see a Amoonguss switch right now, going to go into the Cresselia. Conan's priority probably right now is to set up another Trick Room. Kangaskhan going to go for the Fake Out, going to target down the Cresselia. Good call right there. That's going to be essentially a free switch for Conan.
Yeah, it's a free switch for Matthew too. The Amoonguss going out, let's get some health back, maybe come back in once that Safeguard is gone and Trick Room is back up, but it can be in a good position again. It's in an awful position now. Getting it off the field hopefully helps it be more useful later in the game.
Right, Kangaskhan now can threaten that Tyranitar with a low kick. Tyranitar, of course, loves biting into those Cresselias with a powerful crunch.
Right, it would... I don't know that Conan really can prioritize avoiding that now, though. He's got too many other things to worry about. His full health Cresselia is probably going to have to take crunch if Matthew decides that's what he wants. But Matthew has to worry about taking a low kick with his Tyranitar also. But if you do that full trade, the low kick and then the Psychic lands on Kangaskhan, that's something I still think Matthew would be happy with. If Kangaskhan goes down, like I said, Gyarados becomes a huge, huge problem for Conan.
Right, but you're right. And Amoonguss, pretty much is useless against Matthew's Cresselia.
Yeah.
It can't be put to sleep, and Cresselia's just going to keep attacking it.
Yeah. So I think... so Conan identifies that, knows he needs to protect his Kangaskhan from possible Psychic and switches.
Right, and we see Tyranitar going to switch out too, going to go straight back into Gyarados, probably trying to bait Kangaskhan to stay in and go for Intimidate, bait the low kick into that slot. Gyarados going to intimidate the Heatran and the Cresselia, not too big of a deal.
But
Gyarados don't mind that.
Gyarados is so good in this matchup that even though Conan switched out on the turn Matthew tried to switch Gyarados into a good position, it's still in a good position, even despite Trick Room going up.
Right, right. Matt is in still good position.
Yeah,
right.
He's threatening
that's what you said.
Yeah, threatening a Waterfall. This Heatran can't really do much other than chip at these two with Heat Wave. We've already seen how little that does to them. He's somehow Conan's gonna have to deal with his Gyarados, and it may be just lots of chip damage because I don't know what else he's gonna be able to do. I will have to see some more of the moveset of Conan's Cresselia. Maybe it has something else it can do.
So, Cresselia, we've seen it take a little bit of chip damage from those Heat Waves. Heat Wave is not doing too much to Gyarados either. Really, really bulky Gyarados, really bulky Cresselia. I mean, Cresselia has a bunch of natural bulk, and Gyarados also has a bunch of natural special bulk too. And Gyarados is actually probably one of my favorite Pokemon in the metagame still. Intimidate's great. If it goes Mega, you know, you can
Another
you
Pokemon
can go
has
get Mold Breaker.
multiple roles. You know, can be a sweeper, can be a support Pokemon.
Right.
Here we see Helping Hand towards Heatran. So
Cresselia gonna go for the Helping Hand on Heatran. Heatran goes for the Earth Power, trying to get a prediction right there, but unfortunate that Matt just didn't bite for it, as the Waterfall is going to target down that Heatran, not going to be able to pick up the knockout, hangs on with a sliver of health, as Cresselia is going to go ahead and finish it off and pick up the Psychic.
I think Conan knew he was falling into a hole, needed something big to pull him back into the game, was looking for a T-Tar switch in there.
Or an Excadrill switch.
Or an Excadrill, but the Earth Power, the Helping Hand on it makes me think he was looking for Tyranitar to really get the damage. I think it's a knockout, or you just Heat Wave if you expect the Excadrill, because then you're safe without the switch.
Right.
So he expected T-Tar to come in to resist that Heat Wave, maybe be immune to whatever Cresselia was trying to do. Also, I was hoping for maybe some tricks from Cresselia. Helping Hand, I don't think is going to be enough to pull Conan back into this game. He's not going to get enough attacks off, even if their Helping Hand boosted, if Cresselia can't do anything on its own. It'll sit around on the field. Matthew will very contentedly not KO it until it's down to the last Pokemon.
Right, and I don't think there was really any need for Matt to switch there. I mean, we've seen Cresselia take that Heat Wave time and time again.
Yeah.
It's probably taken 2 Heat Waves by now.
A switch there would just be trying to push things for Matthew. It was unlikely, but I do think Conan, what was he supposed to do with that Heatran? He didn't want to switch it, maybe to a Mungus, but you're just kind of treading water. He looked to do something other than tread water, and it didn't work out.
Mungus coming in with Trick Room. Is Trick Room up? Trick Room is up, right?
Trick Room is up, but he can, with the Protect or the Switch, plus the Safety Goggles and Safeguard, can just negate this.
Right, has Safeguard expired yet? I was not paying attention to the Safeguard turns. Mungus is going to go ahead and go for the Giga Drain onto the Cresselia, going to try to chip away at it and gain back some health, as the Sandstorm slowly going to just chip away at the rest of Conan's team. Ice Beam from Cresselia, from Conan's side, going to target down the Cresselia on Matthew's side, as Cresselia's on Matthew's side, going to target down the Cresselia on Conan's side.
Yeah, Conan just doesn't have the offensive presence to stay in this game. He has Trick Him Up, and he's not a threat to the Excadrill in the slightest. He needs to have something more powerful. And I think that, looking back to that early damage against Kangaskhan, that Iron Head that landed on it, is really showing in this later part of this game, because Kangaskhan cannot safely come in and try to do something because it will just get revenge KO'd.
Yeah, the Psychic, I think it might be in Psychic range. If not, after a Psychic, it will slowly get chipped away by the Sandstorm.
Right, and it's absolutely in something like an Iron Head, a Rock Slide, a Crunch, a Low Kick, any of that stuff. It's going to knock it out. So he's still saving it, hopes to do something useful with it, but it's going to be hard to ever break through to being able to do something useful with only a Mungus and Cresselia's offense. We saw how little they did to Cresselia. They're not going to do that much more to Excadrill, and meanwhile Excadrill can do a lot of damage. I think Mungus is going to get a chance to get a Spore off, though. Yeah,
it's going to come down to one of those situations where plays from a couple turns before, make a big difference later on in the game. Like you said, the Iron Head. All this Sandstorm chip damage is also going to matter, too. Cresselia going to take a lot of damage, as Cresselia is going to be able to set up a Safeguard. Cresselia, on Matthew's side, is on the verge of getting knocked out from, I'd say, 1 or 2 more Ice Beams. 2 more for sure.
So he's just a little bit late with that Safeguard. I still think he's in a very winning position, but it would have been much better if he could have kept that Excadrill from falling asleep. This is one of the small things that Conan needed to do to try to pull into the game. Sand ends, which is probably good for Matthew, keeps that Cresselia, forces like a Giga Drain and an Ice Beam for KO. And Excadrill may have time to wake up before it can get KO'd either.
Yeah. And, the issue right now, time is about to expire, so that might be Conan's best odds of winning. Knock out this Cresselia and finish.
And try to win on time. Yeah, but Cresselia, knowing that, has no reason to stay on the field. Just leave and win 4-3. If Tyranitar switches in, there's nothing these two can do will KO it, or Excadrill before the timer runs out.
Yeah, absolutely. Probably going to look for a switch right here to preserve his 4-3 lead.
Right.
That's going to be what Matthew needs to do. Cresselia does switch out right here, so good call on your part, Len, to predict that. It was the obvious prediction.
Yeah, there's no reason to do anything else. These two Pokemon have not enough offense to try to pull this to a 3-3 tie if Cresselia leaves the field.
And Tyranitar comes in. Giga Drain happens, does a good amount of damage, but that Ice Beam will not be able to do that much to the Tyranitar in the sand.
No, I think if you were going to get a knockout, it probably had to be an Excadrill because Tyranitar will protect next turn. Oh, and it wakes up anyway.
Yeah, Excadrill wakes up, goes for the Iron Head, does a lot of damage. Excadrill's going to take some Life Orb damage back to itself.
But,
and was that Rocky Helmet?
Yeah, it was Rocky Helmet. Double protection in this game, though. Unless one of these Pokemon don't have it. Otherwise, a switch to Gyarados in that spot that can't protect. Trick Room's gone. You can also just KO the Amoonguss and crunch the Cresselia for a likely KO. There's lots of ways to just... There's basically no way Conan can try to tie this game.
Yeah, that should be it for the time. Going back to the drawing board right now, who do you think it's going to be to... I mean, what adjustments do you think Conan needs to make? Definitely more
Conan needs more
firepower.
offense, right. I don't know, like, Cresselia and Amoonguss seems good, but now that safety goggles, safeguard, Cresselia has been revealed, I don't think he can bring Amoonguss again. It loses too badly to that Cresselia, which is going to definitely be there for Matthew. And he just didn't know about it going into Game 1, but now that he knows about it, that Amoonguss slot would be another offensive Pokemon. You know, because when we saw that first and then Amoonguss come in Trick Room, it looked like he was in a great position. It had a chance to score, to really control what Matthew could do. It was the safety goggles and the safeguard that totally changed that, and makes Amoonguss a completely dead spot.
Going back to team preview right now, Matthew going to be running Tyranitar, Excadrill, Gyarados, Amoonguss, Aegislash, and Cresselia. Conan going to be running Kangaskhan, Landorus Therian, Heatran, Gardevoir, and Cresselia.
Yeah. So looking at something to replace that Amoonguss with on Conan's side, I guess it's got to be... I don't know. So the two he didn't bring to his last game were Landorus and Gardevoir. I don't know if he can bring Gardevoir. If it's focused around Hyper Voice, he needs the Kangaskhan. So that means Landorus over Amoonguss or over Cresselia, but it seems like Amoonguss would be the spot to drop. But I definitely think he needs more offense. Mm-hmm. And Landorus is great at controlling the Excadrill and Tyranitar. I'm surprised he didn't use it last game.
So we go into leads right now. Conan going to lead the Amoonguss and the Kangaskhan. Not what you want to see, but Matthew, I mean, if it's not broken, why change it?
Well,
right? Going for the Excadrill and the Tyranitar.
And if you can refocus how he uses Amoonguss and use it as a Rage Powder, something to keep Kangaskhan at full health. We talked about how important it was that Kangaskhan wasn't at full health. If you can refocus around doing that, it's fine to have Amoonguss. It can still be very useful. But using it, setting up Trick Room, and then using it to try to control what Matthew does is where that didn't work. So, you know, he didn't lead Cresselia. He's clearly not going after early Trick Room this game. Using Amoonguss this different way makes it a good inclusion. It's a good thought on Conan's part to come up with a different way to use Amoonguss instead of using it completely.
Gonna have to be careful about where he's gonna target his spores because he knows where the safety goggles is. And if Matt did decide to bring Cresselia again, you know, it can just easily switch in where the obvious spore is gonna go.
Right. Probably something like a double Rock Slide to avoid any sort of Rage Powder and also try for a flinch on some of this stuff.
Tyranitar going to switch out this turn, not even going to go Mega. Going to switch straight into the Cresselia, probably expecting that's where the Spore is going to go.
Yeah.
Kangaskhan now going to go Mega, and probably going to go for the Fake Out on that Excadrill. Excadrill is just going to go straight for the Earthquake.
Lots of damage on the field. So, you know, I talked about the Rock Slides as a way to get around Rage Powder. Earthquake is too. Requires the switch, but we didn't see the Rage Powder, which means the Spore is coming somewhere.
Kangaskhan going to go for the low kick right now, going to target down the Cresselia. Unfortunately, the Tyranitar switched out, so good prediction right there from Matthew.
Makes me think the Spore is on Excadrill, though.
Yeah. Unfortunate, but now, I mean,
so
Kangaskhan isn't going to do too much to Cresselia.
So the low kick was going to be somewhere, the Spore was going to be in the other spot. Cresselia can only switch in one of those two spots. It could only either safety goggles out or stop the low kick. So Conan, distributing those two, felt safe that he could do something, as long as it didn't run into a Protect and Cresselia.
Yeah, it was a good call.
Yeah.
It was a good call to make that switch.
Once again, he's lost most of Kangaskhan's health on turn 1, which I think will come back to bite him. Gyarados can come in now, Intimidate, and try to get a Waterfall Psychic, something to, along with sand damage, finish off this Kangaskhan without having to get another big powerful attack on it.
Oh yeah, for sure. Cresselia right now is also safe to set up a Safeguard too. That'd be awesome.
Yeah.
That'd be great to see.
Or just Psychic this Amoonguss. Get big damage on it. It can't Spore you. It's not going to Spore a sleeping Excadrill. You don't need Safeguard within much immediacy. Getting Amoonguss knocked out means you don't ever have to worry about Spore. You don't have to waste your turns safeguarding. And you don't have to worry about Rage Powder later in the game either.
Excadrill still going to stay in, going to be continuing to sleep. Interesting to see him not switch out. Kangaskhan goes straight for the double edge.
KO itself.
target down the Cresselia, going to do a good amount of damage with the critical hit on the first hit. And the second hit does not pick up a knockout, but that might knock out Kangaskhan himself. Oh, hangs on with 27 hit points. That's going to be 2 turns of... Oh, never mind. It's going to get knocked out by the Psychic. So Kangaskhan does fall. Amoonguss, what is it going to do? Going to go for the Spore onto the extra gel slot, expecting a switch.
Yeah, expecting a switch. We talked about maybe that being a Gyarados switch in. Conan was probably thinking something along those same lines. I think that double edge, it knocked out his own Kangaskhan along with the Psychic shift damage, but I think it was really valuable damage against Cresselia. If this extra gel sleeps this turn, you do something like a Spore and a Heat Wave. Heat Wave should knock out Cresselia from this health. If you Spore towards Cresselia, either it will get knocked out or force a switch that you can put to sleep.
Right.
But all of that relies on Excadrill sleeping. If Excadrill wakes up, the Air Balloon is there, so Heatran will still be able to get 2 knockouts if Cresselia stays out and Excadrill wakes up. But you'll lose Amoonguss most likely.
One of the cool things about, Air Balloon, you had to spend 1 turn to try to break it.
Yeah.
If you're really careful with the Air Balloon, you can keep it indefinitely.
The drawback is when you get that turn for free. When you want to switch into like an Ice Beam or something small, and it ends up costing you a lot because you lose your item.
Right.
But if you want to use Heatran like this, bringing it in after a KO at fresh health, not trying to switch it in using its defensive typing, then Air Balloon is so valuable. As you can see right now, if this was a threatened wake up into a double KO for Earthquake, this would be a really treacherous spot for Conan.
And Landorus also going to switch in here. Going to go for the Intimidate onto the Excadrill. Amoonguss does not want to stay in. Wants to go back and get regenerated health back. Cresselia going to go ahead and Protect. That's not a move we see too often on Cresselia.
Very rarely. Despite Cresselia being one of the most common Pokemon in the game for years and years, and Protect being one of the most common moves, not something you see together very often.
And we see Heatran go for the Heat Wave. That should be the knockout on Excadrill. Unfortunately, that Excadrill only got off 1 Earthquake, but it was a very big Earthquake in that Kangaskhan.
Yeah, but I think Conan's in a really good spot now. Gyarados coming in will be a little scary, but you can still U-turn the Cresselia for a knockout while switching the Heatran back to Gyarados. We're going to take a Waterfall somewhere. It's going to, and he's 2 Waterfall weak Pokemon left, so unless he protects that, or gets the prediction right and gets it on Amoonguss, he likely will take a bad Waterfall, but can probably take a knockout on Cresselia and set up towards a knockout on the Tyranitar the next turn if he avoids taking a Waterfall with Landorus. It'll still be threatening things like Superpower and Earthquake.
Right. Gyarados can paralyze the Heatran, but the important thing is that Cresselia needs to stay around in order to combat the Tyranitar.
Yeah, but I don't think there's much hope of Cresselia staying around. It's in Heat Wave KO range, it's in U-turn KO range, it's probably in Rock Slide KO range.
Yeah.
It's going down. The more important thing is guessing where to put this Waterfall correctly, or if Conan just protects and U-turns and doesn't risk anything. That works too.
Cresselia does go for the switch back into Tyranitar. Could possibly be a safe switch, but you never know.
Well, we expect it to eat a U-turn, most likely.
Possibly. Heatran going to protect itself this turn. Did not want to take a Waterfall at all. Landorus going to go for the U-turn. Going to target down the Tyranitar, who is not Mega yet, so that's going to do a lot more damage than Matthew probably would like to see.
Yeah, great chunk of damage. And this Protect plus U-turning out, it threatened the KO on Cresselia or good damage on Tyranitar switch in, while leaving nothing that can be hurt by Waterfall very badly.
Yeah, yeah. Gyarados going to go for the Thunder Wave onto the Heatran slot. Unfortunately, Heatran did Protect there, so Conan pretty much got a free switch into the Amoonguss with some extra chip damage on top.
With great chip damage on Tyranitar. Puts it
Gravy.
Puts it not in Earth Power KO range, but likely in Earthquake KO range. Or, Earth Power, some Giga Drains, you can get there.
Yeah, and Amoonguss now free to Rage Power any attack that Heatran does not enjoy facing off against. Low kicks, waterfalls, anything of that sort.
I think this is a great spot for the Heatran and Amoonguss. Amoonguss isn't really that threatened. Won't take too many crunches, but we'll stick around for a couple turns, and meanwhile can let this Heatran fire off a lot of good attacks. It's interesting, if he can correctly guess where the Earth Power is going towards Tyranitar and bring in Cresselia, he can dodge a turn of damage, and then Heat Waves won't be doing too much. Or a Flash Cannon, maybe, if he has it.
Or Earth Power, too. Earth Power works.
Yeah, but Flash Cannon is clearly better if he has it, because it would pick up the knockout of Cresselia on the switching.
We do see Mega Tyranitar finally go Mega. Tyranitar going to go for the Rock Slide. Heatran avoids the attack, possibly looking for flinches. Interesting to see that Amoonguss did not do the Rage Powder or anything like that. Gyarados going to go for the Swagger. That's a move that we don't see too often on Gyarados at all, but it's essentially operating just like Thundurus. Swagger, Thunder Wave with an Intimidate.
Yep. So Heatran doesn't go for Flash Cannon or Earth Power, gets a Heat Wave off, that'll do little bits of damage here and there. I think Amoonguss must be going for a Spore.
Amoonguss now confused and possibly flinching. Amoonguss going to hit itself in confusion instead. We see that it's definitely paying off for Matthew to be running that Thunderwave Swagger stuff on Gyarados.
Yeah.
Unfortunate that the Sandstorm does decide this turn. That's going to take away Tyranitar's special defense boost.
Yeah, it's going to make it easier for E-Train to try to get a knockout if it has something like Earth Power or Flash Cannon. It's interesting to me whether or not you risk getting Amoonguss out. Getting Amoonguss out gives it, that regenerator health, undoes the confusion, but you risk taking damage on the Landorus that could be so important to later get Rock Slides on the Gyarados, Earthquakes on the Tyranitars. It's kind of your big damage that's left. Heatran has more surviving power, not worrying as much about these Rock Slides, but you also get an Intimidate if you switch in, so I think it might be worth it to risk it just to make Amoonguss more useful.
Yeah, Tyranitar's going to outspeed that Heatran. It can easily go for Rock Slide flinches too if it wants to try to go for that. To pop the balloon, first off, that's what needs to happen. Tyranitar going to go for the low kick and target down the Amoonguss, unfortunately, not going for the Rock Slide. Going to take some Rocky Helmet damage right there. As Gyarados going to go for the Waterfall, going to target down the Amoonguss again because of the Rage Powder.
Yeah, so really good prediction by Conan there. He didn't Rage Powder last turn, went for a Spore most likely, and had it Confusion hit. There he had either the option for Spore or the really good option for Switch that I talked about. Didn't do either one. Rage Powder took 2 great attacks. I think that Rocky Helmet damage was critical in actually getting the knockout on Tyranitar also. A Rock Slide would have been so much better for Matthew, but after seeing last turn no Rage Powder and the good chance of Switch this turn, he thought he might be able to sneak in a low kick that turn. Didn't work out for him.
Yeah, right now the position is Cresselia is going to move before the Gyarados, so we saw that already. Most likely pick up the knockout on Amoonguss, and that leaves Gyarados able to possibly go for the Waterfall on the Heatran.
I think now's when you get your Intimidate. Lower the amount of damage this Waterfall does to Heatran, and then fire off a Heat Wave. That also should get Amoonguss back to enough health to take a Waterfall if you have knock out Cresselia before you take a Psychic. Doesn't.
Right, Cresselia goes for the Protect, Amoonguss goes for the Rage Powder, and that should do it, really. Gyarados going to go for the Swagger. Okay, alright, maybe it's not over yet. Gyarados going to go for the Swagger, going to target down the Amoonguss. Its attack is now +4. As Heatran goes for the Heat Wave, going to land and connect with the Gyarados. The seal here is a burn. That would essentially do it. Gyarados with the Citrus Berry can activate and heal back. So this is essentially Thunderous.
Yeah. So now even a better reason to switch. Amoonguss Swaggered again. Maybe we still won't see it, but it seems like a good play. Also, Rage Powder until you can just Rock Slide is probably fine too.
Matthew does have outs here. If he does knock out the Amoonguss and the Waterfall does connect with the Heatran and it flinches, that's a chance.
Yeah, that's a chance. Absolutely. But then Landorus coming in, getting the Intimidate, threatening Rock Slides, all going to be not good for Matthew. Which is probably why he doesn't want to risk switching Amoonguss, because he knows how valuable that Landorus could be.
It's still a close battle, guys. Both players right now are trying to figure out what the best course of action is. I mean, there's still 4 minutes on the timer. Timer does not look like it's in Matt's favor right now. Amoonguss confused, going to go for the Rage Powder right here. Cresselia's going to move first, though, and fire off the Psychic, I believe.
Yeah.
And Cresselia just goes straight for the Icy Wind. That should knock out
the KO.
Amoonguss picks up the knockout on Amoonguss, which is important. Going to slow down Heatran, going to break its air balloon, but, I mean, Gyarados, we know its moveset right now.
Yeah.
Is it going to go for the Swagger, or do you think it's going to go for the Waterfall flinch?
Swagger.
Gyarados goes straight for the Waterfall. Going to target down the Heatran. 30% chance to flinch right here. That is going to be huge if it happens. Heatran goes for the Heat Wave, and Cresselia dodges it.
So between the flinch and the avoid, you had a decent chance of Cresselia surviving the turn, and it happens. Oh, but the burn
on Gyarados,
makes up
that's
for it
unfortunate.
completely. It's going to have so much trouble getting rid of the Landorus now.
Right.
I think you can just U-turn the Cresselia to make sure you don't miss. You won't. It's probably a 3-hit KO, maybe 4-hit KO with Waterfall and Landorus. As long as Cresselia does not Icy Wind Landorus, he should be completely fine to just let this Gyarados go down from burn.
Right. That burn definitely helped. Now Gyarados has a timer on himself, besides the fact that there's already a 3-minute timer. That was close. You know, definitely a close battle between the two. Timer's not going to be a factor right now because Cresselia is on the verge of getting knocked out. 2-on-1, Gyarados most likely, I mean, Rock Slide could also...
Yeah, Rock Slide could...
Yeah.
There you risk, if Gyarados protects and Cresselia dodges a Rock Slide, hits an Icy Wind, then outspeeds Landorus. It's another Icy Wind. I don't know what this Landorus' if it's Scarf or not. I would maybe guess not, because it is Trick Room for Conan. Could still be. But that's how you start getting into things, is when you start missing rock slides. That's why I think something like a U-turn or knockoff is good. But rock slide, probably with a 90% chance wins you this game. Much better than 90% chance in reality, because it takes more after the.
And Cresselia going to protect itself this turn. Doesn't want to take any sort of damage. Lander's going to go for the rock slide. Connects with the Gyarados, and that's going to do it. If not, this is going to be the that knocks out Gyarados, and Cresselia's on the last layer of health. Rock slide and a heat wave should seal the deal here.
So another match that's almost going to time. After these two games, it's clear that this match has every ability to go to time. If either player wants to, they could take much longer in all their selections early in the game and probably force it to go to time. That would be the something that you definitely have to keep in mind in the early parts of these matches. If a player feels like they are starting to lose the ability to KO something, but might still be able to hold a lead, they could start taking the full 45 seconds and playing for the timer from really early in the match.
So now we're going to go straight into Game 3 here at the top 8 of the 2015 Salt Lake City Regional Championships. In other news, guys, TFC has lost. Right.
And Victor Camacho, the undefeated until the last round of Swiss, has also lost.
Right. So, guys, check out the Battle 5 bracket in order to keep updated to what's going on here on the other matches. Back into team preview right now. Matthew played a solid Game 1. Game 2, Conan definitely, adjusted well. Right?
Yeah. Conan adjusted well. I think the biggest thing is the amount of information he got in Game 1. If you look at things like the safety goggles, the safeguard, the Mega Tyranitar, the Life Orb on Excadrill, these are all really important things that Conan learned in Game 1, and it let him play much better in the second game. We'll see if he can continue to have the advantage of that information gain, or if Matthew can come up with something to break what he did last game. I do like how he's transitioned in using Amoonguss. Not trying to get Trick Room up, and so not trying to rely so much on Spore. He instead of getting a useful Spore, they really changed the game, but he didn't totally rely on that happening, which is good when you're up against Safety Goggles, Safeguard, Cresselia.
We are ready now to go into the last game of the top 8. All the other sets have finished. It's just these two going into Game 3. So Conan going to lead Gardevoir and Amoonguss.
So we see the Gardevoir for the first time from Conan. Kangaskhan hasn't done that much so far.
It's usually taken one hit and then put in range.
But it got the very crucial double edge in Cresselia last game that I think swung that game. It didn't actually get a KO, but important damage there. We saw how the fact that the Cresselia was in Heat Wave KO range, in U-turn KO range, in Rock Slide KO range really affected the way Matthew played over the course of that game. We'll see if he isn't able to get that damage because he doesn't have Kangaskhan, if that will give Matthew an advantage. Gardevoir really I don't think plays that well against Matthew's team, but Conan probably hoping that bringing to an off speed, something unexpected, something that Matthew hasn't seen yet, will give him an advantage in Game 3. And a Hyper Voice would do good damage right now, and you just have to not take too much damage from a Rock Slide or a Crunch from this Mega Tyranitar.
I think right now, since he is bringing Gardevoir doubles as his offensive power with Kangaskhan, and also doubles as your Trick Room setter as Cresselia. So I am expecting Gardevoir and Amoonguss with Heatran and Landorus Therian in the back. That's my best bet. As Landorus Therian does make an appearance right now, going to come out and intimidate the Tyranitar that is on Matthew's side. That could possibly be dangerous, switching it into a possible Psychic.
Yeah, but I think it's good to weaken what this Tyranitar can do to your Mega Gardevoir. You don't want to needlessly take too strong of a Rock Slide or Crunch on turn 1. You could Rage Powder away a Crunch, but not a Rock Slide. So I think getting the Intimidate will weaken this what's likely a Rock Slide here, and keep Gardevoir in better health. And also be threatening good damage next turn with a U-turn or something else.
You see Mega Gardevoir go straight for the Hyper Voice, going to do a lot of damage to Tyranitar, a lot of damage to Cresselia as Cresselia goes for the Psychic onto the Landorus Therian. Going to do a decent amount of damage as Tyranitar going to go ahead and go for the Rock Slide. Brings Landorus all the way to about 50%. Gardevoir with the sand damage almost at 50%. I'd say about 55%.
Yeah, but now U-turn plus Hyper Voice is a great turn for Conan. I'm not sure it quite gets the knockout on Cresselia, but it's a lot of damage from the board, and Cresselia won't be able to do much back. It can try to get an Icy Wind on this Landorus, slow down Gardevoir. Protect plus Icy Wind is a play I might expect, or Switch plus Icy Wind. Slowing down Gardevoir would be really helpful, because it seems to be faster than what Matthew has so far. And we've already seen that Cresselia is faster than the Gyarados, so most likely faster than 3 of the Pokemon Matthew has, so getting an Icy Wind on it would be big.
Absolutely, if he can survive, that's the question.
Yeah,
that's the problem.
It's definitely a question, but there's a good shot at it. Depends on how offensive this Landorus is versus Bulk. I definitely don't think you can afford to just let Tyranitar take a Hyper Voice here. It's too easy.
Right, Tyranitar does retreat. Gonna go straight into Aegislash, a Pokemon that we haven't seen from Matthew's side at all.
No, we haven't seen yet, but it's exactly the kind of switching you want right now.
Yeah, gonna go ahead and protect itself this turn. Gonna see what Landorus is gonna go for. It goes for the U-turn, and Gardevoir goes for the Hyper Voice. So, good momentum, slight momentum shift from Matthew's side. He's trying to pick it up, and I think he is in decent position to do so.
Yeah, now this Aegislash is in a pretty good spot. Not threatened by too much from, and an Earthquake would be bad, but unlikely that is able to come out this turn. And if he still goes for the Hyper Voice U-turn and knock out Cresselia, Gardevoir will be knocked out by a Shadow Ball or Flash Cannon in return. I expect to see maybe Heatran switch into the Gardevoir spot and then still U-turn the Cresselia or something like that, because I don't think Gardevoir can afford to stay in the field. It needs to try to come back in when it can outspeed and KO that Mega Tyranitar. Because Amoonguss is another option to come in. If both Amoonguss and Heatran can come onto the field this turn, I think it would be another good spot for Conan.
Yes, absolutely.
Especially if he can get on his way out, get that U-turn damage on Cresselia to get it closer to possible Heat Wave KO range.
Cresselia right now, that's a tough call, right? Because you can possibly lose Cresselia this turn. But is Cresselia really going to do much? Cresselia going to go ahead and switch, so Matthew does see that Cresselia needs to stay around a bit longer and goes for the Gyarados, going to go for an Intimidate. Good switch right there, because most likely that Landorus there and U-turn's going to go straight back into that Gyarados.
Right. And the Intimidated, Gardevoir doesn't switch out yet. Stays on the field another turn. Maybe that means an Earthquake is coming.
Oh, Landorus goes for the U-turn into the Gyarados, going to do a little bit of damage, but going to switch back. And where is Conan going to go to try to pick up some momentum? He could also be possibly switching it into a possible Shadow Ball or Flash Cannon too.
Yeah, but I think Amoonguss coming in now is good. Heatran seemed good when Cresselia was on the field, but you can't afford to have it in against Gyarados. So Amoonguss comes in, gives Gardevoir a better chance at getting stuff done, but that sub Aegislash is huge.
Yeah, will not be able to be put to sleep, but now Amoonguss is out there to just Rage Powder away anything that wants to try to touch that Gardevoir on Conan's side.
Yeah, but it'll be Rage Powdering away Flash Cannons while putting decent damage on Gyarados, but the Gyarados we've seen is very bulky. Will survive several Hyper Voices. Meanwhile,
there is no point to Flash Cannon. You're better off with the Shadow Ball, possibly to prevent a Heat Ram from switching in.
And so, Gyarados will have it'll be good damage on Amoonguss without much response from Gardevoir. Gyarados will also have the chance to swagger that Amoonguss and stop the Rage Powder. So it'll only actually last for one turn before Gardevoir won't feel as safe, because it can't sit in thinking it might take a Shadow Ball because Amoonguss hits itself in confusion. So while this is a good chance to get a Hyper Voice off, I'm not sure it's more sustainable than that.
Definitely, Len. I agree with you there. Gardevoir has been slowly getting chipped away, but Gardevoir's still out there. It can still fire off Hyper Voices. It's going to go through the Substitute and do damage to that Aegislash, unfortunately.
Yeah, but, it's still resisted. Aegislash is great for taking those Hyper Voices.
Right. We see Amoonguss go for the Rage Powder as Gyarados is going to protect itself this turn. Does not want to take damage. Gardevoir goes for the Encore. That's an interesting move choice on Gardevoir.
Gardevoir's fourth move slot is always up in the air. It can be a Hidden Power, a Substitute, a Trick Room. Encore is not something you see very often. Worked out incredibly there. Gyarados protects itself on the turn that Aegislash now becomes mostly useless. So
Aegislash has to switch out.
Aegislash has to switch out, but nothing wants to switch into this Hyper Voice. Cresselia, I guess, is going to do it. Or you sit there and try to swagger and then get a Waterfall on Gardevoir and just click sub until you can get out of Encore. That was an incredible move by Conan to get him out of a spot I thought was in a really bad spot for him.
Right. If this match would be completely different if Matt decided to bring Excadrill, because Excadrill just Earthquake through that Rage Powder.
Right.
So Matt trying to change things up a little bit after seeing Excadrill just get put to sleep so easily, but now Aegis Slash is just stuck.
Yeah, totally stuck. It's a really tough decision for Matthew. I'm sure that's why this turn is taking a long time. Whether to try to brave through those encores, basically relying on Swagger to eventually get a waterfall off, or switch, but either put so much damage on Cresselia that it faints from the next Hyper Voice, or basically sacrifice your Tyranitar.
And Gyarados going to go ahead, or sorry, Amoonguss going to go ahead and Rage Powder away anything that's going to be single targeting.
Yeah, and so Aegis Slash makes that decision. It stays in. It's going to try to be looking to just stay on the field long enough to get past Encore and still have a substitute up without being knocked out. Thunder Wave,
Gyarados does get the Thunder Wave off, and Amoonguss now might not be able to Rage Powder away. It might be fully paralyzed.
I don't know what turn Matthew's going to decide to start going after the Waterfall. The more turns that he does get his Waterfall Rage Powder, the worse it goes for him. So a Swagger makes the next turn much better. I don't know if he thinks he can afford to do that, though. Because 2 Hyper Voices probably KOs this Gyarados.
Yes.
So I think this is the turn he has to go for Waterfall. It only gives him a 75% chance, or 25% chance of landing it.
Gardevoir in great position to sweep with that Amoonguss out on the field. As long as Amoonguss doesn't get fully paralyzed, Gardevoir is just going to be content with just firing off the Hyper Voice. One of the things, though, that substitute is not going to be broken at all, because Hyper Voice is going to bypass that sub. Amoonguss isn't really going to be able to chip away at that substitute. So if Aegis Slash can somehow survive this onslaught of Hyper Voices, he'll be able to knock out the Gardevoir and keep that substitute up.
The problem is it's surviving all these turns with a Landorus and a Heatran in the back for Conan.
That's true. We do see the full paralysis right now, and Gyarados hangs on and goes for the Thunder Wave onto the Mega Gardevoir, so that's good position right there, because otherwise, if Matthews just stays in, he's just going to get Encore back in the sub.
He got exactly what he needed, though, and then didn't get the Waterfall KO. If you get that, because the issue is, now you're slower than Aegis Slash, so I guess you can't Encore the Aegis Slash. It's as good as getting it off the field as far as making Aegis Slash usable again, but so you're turning down a knockout for now. You're probably going to end up getting Rage Powder this time. But yeah, Matthew very, very fortunate there. Basically, like I said, played into relying on a Amoonguss fully paralyzed and got it. That he put his hopes for this game on an Amoonguss fully paralyzed and got it. So he's got to be really happy with that. This game 3 of a top 8.
Yeah, Aegis Slash's Encore should end at... Oh, it already ended. Now we're going to go for the King's Shield here. Does not want to take...
It could take an Encore. Encore goes through King's Shield.
It does, but Gardevoir goes for the Protect instead. Safe play. We do see Amoonguss not go for the Rage Powder instead. Going to go for the Giga Drain instead. Going to target down and knock out that Gyarados himself. So Amoonguss is going to pick up a KO.
Yeah, probably they're just a little bit better because you're not risking taking a Shadow Ball as well.
Right.
And you're relying on 2 chances through Fully Para if you Rage Powder plus Hyper Voice. Only 1 if you go for the Giga Drain. Well, I guess you're relying on the Protect to some extent, but you do sacrifice the little bit of chip damage you would have gotten on Aegis Slash. But yeah, the Paralyze on Gardevoir is huge now. Not outspeeding this Tyranitar. Just completely game-changing.
Rock Slide and Shadow Ball. Sounds like a good play to me, right?
Yeah, you now have the 2 faster Pokemon in the field. Can put lots of damage down. I'd expect Gardevoir protects or switches, and Amoonguss tries to put some damage on Tyranitar.
Tyranitar is going to go ahead and go for the Rock Slide instead. That's going to pick up the knockout on Gardevoir, possibly leaving Amoonguss to flinch here. Aegis Slash Shadow Ball coming right back at it too.
I think Conan must have been content there to let Gardevoir be knocked out, knowing that it now is slower than the Tyranitar and the Aegis Slash. They can both KO it. Not much use in keeping it around, and so he just lets it get knocked out. Get a free switch in for another Pokemon and gets this Tyranitar put to sleep. I wish this Landorus wasn't choiced. It seems to be choiced, but now is the perfect time to Earthquake, right?
Right. Break the sub, hit the Tyranitar for super effective damage, and pick up the knockout even.
But you can't lock into that if you're locked into it with Amoonguss and Heatran, you'll knock yourself out. Cresselia to switch in, it's just so dangerous. At choice, Landorus can't do it. And so instead, you see this the Heatran come in, doesn't quite threaten quite as much damage as Landorus with the Heat Wave, but can still break the sub and do good damage to Tyranitar. That if Aegis Slash doesn't choose to knock out Amoonguss, Giga Drain probably finishes off along with a Heat Wave.
Right. Tough position for Matthew to be in. Unfortunately, to see that Tyranitar go to sleep. If that Tyranitar was still awake, this would be a whole different game. Low kick onto the Heatran would do so much damage.
Yeah, you can't ask for another fully para there after the one that totally changed the outlook of this game.
And Aegis Slash does go for the Shadow Ball, going to target down the Amoonguss and pick up the knockout right there. that means that Landorus Therian is going to be able to come in for free.
Yeah, but I think that keeps Tyranitar alive. Maybe keeping Tyranitar... Oh, yeah.
Oh, it
the less
breaks
important miss, but keeping Tyranitar alive, I think, is pretty valuable. Now I think you Heat Wave U-turn your way through the rest of this game.
Yeah, you can hit the Cresselia. I believe Cresselia is on its last sliver of health, right?
Right. So, you can't... If you had knockoff, that'd be great, too. But I think U-turn should get the knockout on Tyranitar from this health. And Heat Wave, of course, will knock out Aegislash. We have seen that this T-Train is incredibly slow. I'm starting to think it must be... We see an Air Balloon. It's just incredibly slow, though.
Yeah, it could be both. It could be a more bulky Heat Ram.
It moved after that Aegislash that turn.
It did.
Is Trick Room still up? It's not.
No,
right?
it wasn't up because we haven't had Trick Room set up at all.
Yeah, there's no Trick Room Pokemon that brought to this game. So incredibly slow, or maybe fast Aegislash? I don't know. That's very uncommon that you see Aegislash outspeed Heatran, but it definitely makes a difference in this game because the Sanders might be in Shadow, it probably is in Shadow Ball K range. If U-turn plus Heat Wave were both faster, this game was sealed for Conan. The fact that Aegislash is faster than Heatran really changes things. Now Landorus may feel forced to try to knock out the Aegislash to avoid getting knocked out by it, and that might mean Earthquake plus Protect.
You can also Earthquake. Landorus can Earthquake into the balloon.
Yeah. Oh, the balloon is still up. You're absolutely right. Yeah, Earthquake's what you've got to do then.
That changes everything, doesn't it?
Yeah, no, because you can Earthquake for free this turn. As long as you keep Heatran alive, it doesn't Earthquake them.
And we do see the Rock Slide connect with Tyranitar after Aegislash goes into Shield Form. Tyranitar wakes up, goes for the crunch. Where's it going? Hits the Landorus. Hangs on with 3 hit points.
I've seen so much resistance to Earthquake from Landorus players. That to me seemed like the perfect spot, but every time they want to use Rock Slide instead. I mean, it would have gotten the knockout, not risked that. Barely survived by Landorus. Just gotten the clean knockout and also done damage to Aegislash.
Cresselia is not at a sliver health. That's the previous game.
That's right.
In game 3.
All it's taken is a U-turn. But
I think Landorus might be choiced, possibly?
Yeah, I think Landorus is choiced.
Yeah.
It'll have to continue to Rock Slide now that it's chosen it. No U-turns, no Earthquakes. And knowing that Aegislash is faster than Landorus, Landorus isn't going to get much off.
You mean the Heat Ram?
Heatran. No, Aegislash, Landorus is not going to get much off. He's going to get 1 Rock Slide unless it flinches Aegislash and Cresselia. It's probably going to be knocked out by...
time's expiring too.
Oh, yeah.
So Matthew might just pull this off in timer.
I actually think Matthew's at the advantage now anyway.
Yeah, I mean...
I think 2 Heat Waves, and he can try to win, but they're not... One of the players is shooting. Oh, we're going to get a turn.
Cresselia is going to go ahead and protect itself this turn. Does not want to take any damage.
Landorus is going to get knocked out. That's going to end...
Aegislash goes for the King Shield. Dual King Shield, yeah?
Yeah. I think...
And that should do it. Time is going to expire this turn as it's 2-2, but I think Matthew will have more HP, right?
Yeah.
Yeah, so Matthew does advance.
Yeah, and